Heather Headley's story begins long before Broadway lights or Grammy nominations in a small town outside Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Born on October 5, 1974, she grew up immersed in church life, quite literally living above the sanctuary where her father pastored. Music wasn't a hobby in her home, it was a language, a form of worship, and a daily discipline. From the time she was a toddler, Heather sang constantly, her voice drawing attention for its clarity and emotional weight even before she could read. She practiced for hours alone in the church, singing to empty pews, learning breath, control, and endurance through repetition rather than formal training. That space shaped not only her voice but her values: humility, faith, patience, and purpose. Long before the world applauded her, Heather learned how to perform with sincerity, not spectacle. From the Caribbean to the Midwest. At 15, Heather's life shifted dramatically when her family relocated to Fort Wayne, Indiana, after her father accepted a new pastoral role. The move was jarring. She traded Caribbean heat and familiarity for snow, cultural isolation, and the experience of being visibly different in a predominantly white environment. The adjustment was emotionally challenging, but music once again became her anchor. At Northrop High School, Heather joined the show choir and starred in school productions, where her talent quickly set her apart. Her performance as Fanny Brice revealed a voice that was not just powerful, but deeply expressive. Teachers recognized her potential immediately, and for the first time, a professional future in music seemed possible. Still, Heather remained grounded, shaped by her upbringing and faith. Even as attention grew, she approached her gift with seriousness rather than ego, seeing it as responsibility rather than entitlement. Northwestern and the call of the stage. Heather enrolled at Northwestern University in 1992, initially as a voice major before transitioning into musical theater. The program was rigorous, competitive, and demanding, but she thrived under structured training and mentorship. It was also during this time that she met Brian Musso, who would later become her husband. Everything appeared carefully mapped out, until opportunity interrupted the plan. In her junior year, Heather was cast in the original Toronto production of Ragtime, understudying Audra McDonald. The offer forced an impossible decision: remain in school or step into a once-in-a-lifetime professional opportunity. Despite fear and hesitation, her mentors encouraged her to go. Leaving school felt like risk and loss, but it also marked the moment Heather chose faith over certainty. That leap placed her on a path no classroom alone could have prepared her for. From ensemble to Broadway breakthrough. What followed was a rapid ascent that still feels unreal in retrospect. Shortly after joining Ragtime, Heather was cast as Nala in the original Broadway production of The Lion King. The role placed her in one of the most successful theatrical productions of all time, introducing her to global audiences. Yet even that milestone became a stepping stone. While still performing nightly, she auditioned for the title role in Aida, a new musical by Elton John and Tim Rice. The production faced uncertainty, but Heather's audition changed everything. Her voice brought emotional depth and strength that anchored the show. When Ada opened on Broadway in 2000, Heather's performance stood out immediately. Critics praised her power and vulnerability, audiences responded viscerally, and within months, she had transformed from promising newcomer to undeniable leading lady. Motherhood and redefined success. By the end of the decade, Heather's life looked very different from what early predictions promised. She became a mother, welcomed multiple children, and released a gospel album that reflected her spiritual grounding. That project earned her a Grammy, reaffirming her excellence, though outside the pop spotlight. She continued performing selectively, but her days were shaped more by family rhythms than red carpets. To many observers, her absence from mainstream charts felt like disappearance. In reality, Heather was present, just not where the industry expected her to be. Her story reveals an uncomfortable truth. When Black women step away from relentless productivity, their contributions are often minimized or forgotten. Heather's talent never diminished. What changed was her willingness to sacrifice herself for constant relevance. In choosing balance, she challenged an industry that rarely allows women both fulfillment and longevity, the weight of identity and silence. Returning to the stage in London's The Bodyguard brought Heather face to face with both legacy and vulnerability. Stepping into a role associated so closely with Whitney Houston carried emotional weight, especially in the aftermath of Whitney's passing. During that period, Heather experienced a serious vocal shutdown that forced complete silence. For someone whose identity had always been intertwined with her voice, the loss was destabilizing. The question she was asked during that time, "Who are you without your gift?" lingered painfully. It exposed how deeply artists are conditioned to equate worth with output. That period forced Heather to confront herself beyond applause, beyond talent, and beyond expectation. It was not a public breakdown, but a private reckoning. The experience reshaped her understanding of self, reminding her that voice is something she has, not something she is. Returning without erasing herself. Heather eventually returned to Broadway in The Color Purple, stepping into a role mid-run rather than launching a comeback campaign. The reception was warm, but time had moved on. A new generation of audiences was unfamiliar with her name. Still, she performed with the same depth and excellence that defined her career. Later, her transition into television through Sweet Magnolias introduced her to viewers who knew nothing of her musical legacy. As an actress, she brought warmth, steadiness, and emotional truth, qualities honed through lived experience rather than constant exposure. These roles didn't restore superstardom, but they expanded her narrative. Heather was no longer framed solely as a singer who stepped away, but as a woman who evolved. Her career did not collapse. It transformed, recognition on different terms. Today, Heather Headley occupies a rare space, deeply respected, quietly influential, and finally understood on her own terms. She may not dominate headlines or charts, but her work endures. Those who know music know her voice. Those who value integrity recognize her choices. Her story isn't one of loss, but of resistance. She resisted an industry that demanded everything in exchange for visibility. She resisted the idea that success requires self-abandonment. In doing so, she exposed a system that often punishes Black women for choosing wholeness. Heather's legacy isn't defined by how much she produced, but by how carefully she protected herself. In a culture obsessed with constant output, her life stands as a reminder that stepping back is not failure. Sometimes it's the bravest form of success, the cost of wanting both. Heather Headley's journey forces an honest question. Why must women choose between greatness and peace? Her career demonstrates that talent alone is never the deciding factor. Compliance is. The tragedy is not that she stepped away, but that stepping away came with erasure. Yet even that erasure could not silence her impact. Her voice still resonates, her performances still move people, and her choices continue to challenge harmful norms. Heather didn't lose her place, she redefined it. Her life tells a different story about ambition, one where fulfillment matters as much as applause. And perhaps that is her greatest contribution of all, proof that a woman can be extraordinary without being consumed, and that sometimes the most radical act is choosing to live fully, even when the world stops watching.